take a look at magnesium absorption. The RDA for magnesium is about 400 milligrams, and that's, again, magnesium coming from food that you eat. So this chart you can see is just, it's taken from a published study, and it's just a summary of kind of where magnesium goes and which tissues it's highest in. And what I wanted to really focus on showing you here is where do we store, where do we have the most magnesium? We have the most magnesium in the muscle tissue, 6,600 milligrams, as well as in the bone tissue, 12,900 milligrams. So muscle and bone are the biggest storehouses for magnesium, and that's important to know as we begin discussing some of the symptoms and diseases associated with magnesium deficiency. It's also important to understand that the kidneys, obviously the GI tract regulates absorption of magnesium, so if there's inflammation in the gut, this process is going to be hindered. It's not going to happen as efficiently. We also know that kidney damage, can lead to abnormal reuptake of magnesium because some magnesium is lost through the urine, but the kidney is really, really good at recycling and reabsorbing magnesium as it comes through it. So if we've got a disease, a kidney damage or kidney disease, this is also going to influence or affect our magnesium status. So again, inflammation in either of these two organs is going to impact how we maintain our magnesium storehouse. Now, let's talk about some of the symptoms, the very common symptoms of magnesium deficiency. And some of these are very common, or quite common. So depression. We live in a society today where depression is actually, I would say it's epidemic in proportion. People are not happy. Magnesium deficiency can cause or contribute to depression through multiple mechanisms. One of the ways is that you need magnesium for proper production of serotonin and dopamine. So neurochemical production, neurochemicals of happiness, right, are necessary. Magnesium is necessary to produce those chemicals. As we said earlier, magnesium also allows for the communication of nerve cells with each other, and depressed communication will lead to depression as a symptom. Extreme PMS symptoms. So ladies, if you have severe cycles or periods with lots of anxiety or depression or mood swings or severe sugar cravings, these are symptoms that can be caused when you're going through your cycle of a magnesium deficiency. And I've seen cases where women, 1 week, if this is you, 1 week before your cycle, 4 to 600 milligrams of extra supplemental magnesium a day may help you navigate your cycle more effectively with less problems. We also know that magnesium deficiency leads to bone loss. As I showed you a moment ago, the vast majority of our storehouse of magnesium is actually in the bone, but very, very important for the bone matrix. Magnesium deficiency can cause heartburn. It's necessary. Magnesium, understand that it's an electrolyte. And so we get into what electrolytes do. Aside from the electrical conductivity of your nerves, we talk about muscles, right? So as an electrolyte to muscles, your GI tract is a muscle. People forget that part. They think muscles are muscles, but GI tract actually is a tube that is a muscular tube. If you do not have adequate magnesium, you can get peristaltic problems, you can get reflux-like symptoms, as well as other problems within the GI tract, one being constipation, very common, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of people will take extra magnesium to go to the bathroom. So heartburn, constipation, not uncommon at all. Now, magnesium also regulates the muscular control of your blood vessels. Remember that blood vessels are also muscles. Your arteries have a muscular layer, and those arteries, those muscular layers contract and extend or relax, and so magnesium regulates that. And this is one of the reasons why low magnesium causes vasoconstriction, or a tightening of the blood vessels. So if we look at this is the tube of the vessel itself, and you have the lining. So you'll have inward contractions and you'll have outward expansions of that blood vessel, and without magnesium, that can actually narrow. It can constrict making blood pressure go up. Now, magnesium is also a natural blood thinner. It prevents platelets from aggregating aggressively. So magnesium itself deficiencies can lead to a greater blood pressure due to thickening of the actual viscosity of the blood. We also have muscle and nerve pains. So aside from spasms, which I mentioned a moment ago, magnesium deficiencies can actually also cause pain. Magnesium naturally is an anti-inflammatory. One of the reasons why its deficiency can lead to muscle and nerve pain. And then IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. As I was mentioning a minute ago, the bowel itself, the GI tract, is a muscle, right? So if you don't have adequate magnesium, you can, just like you can get twitching of your eyelid or twitching in a muscle or cramps, you get cramping of the bowel, which can manifest as IBS-like symptoms. So magnesium, very important in that regard. Then we have fatigue. As I mentioned earlier, you need magnesium to generate ATP, that energy from carbohydrate and from fat. So when you can't make enough ATP, fatigue is a common outcome. Poor flexibility. Again, this goes back to muscles. If your muscles are tight, if you can't bend over and touch your toes, if your muscles are chronically cramping and tight and stiff, you might have a magnesium deficiency. If you're unable to handle stress, remember I said earlier, one of its many functions is in hormone production, and this includes the production of cortisol, but also includes the production of one of the stress hormones, DHEA, as well as adrenaline. You can't make these hormones, these neurotransmitters and hormones, without magnesium. And these are the big ones that help you cope and adapt to stress. So we need magnesium to produce them. So very common symptoms of magnesium deficiency. Getting beyond symptoms are actually disease states that are also linked to magnesium deficiency. And we'll get into some of the irony of this in a moment. But so looking at the heart in the vascular system, we've got high blood pressure, cardiac arrhythmia. So if you've ever gone and had an EKG done and you had abnormal EKG results and your doctor never measured your magnesium level and told you instead he wanted to put you on certain kinds of medications, ask them about magnesium. Mitral valve prolapse, heart attacks and stroke linked to magnesium deficiency. Tetany of the muscles or cramping or spasms. Osteoporosis can be caused by magnesium deficiency. Endocrine disorders like diabetes, hypothyroidism, and sex hormone deficiencies. Ladies, how many times have you been to the doctor and they measured your hormones and wanted to put you on hormones? And this is one of those situations where, okay, most of the time hormone deficiency prompts prescription drugs, right? So low hormone equals prescription, right? How many times have any of you, like if you're listening to this and you went to your doctor and they said you have low hormones, how many times did your doctor measure your magnesium? How many of you can say your doctor measured your magnesium? Or or on the flip side of that, how many of you have had your doctor just say your hormones are low, therefore you need to take these hormones prescription? That's the sad part about it, is you can't make these hormones without magnesium. So if your hormones are low, the bigger question is, why are your hormones low? And if you're just jumping toward taking hormones without understanding the biochemistry of how your hormones are produced in the first place, then you could be going on the path of long-term medication use. And one of the ironies of this is especially true of estrogen, is synthetic estrogen prescriptions and even biological hormone replacement therapy, estrogens can deplete magnesium, right? So the irony is, if your hormones are low because you don't have enough magnesium and then you get put on hormones at higher doses, now you're driving your magnesium down even further. You're stuck in this potentially vicious cycle. But even beyond the vicious cycle, as that hormone is depleting magnesium, it opens you up to all these other symptom and disease possibilities that could also begin to manifest as a result of something called a drug-induced nutritional deficiency. So before you just jump to taking hormones, it's important to understand the need of nutrients and the production of them. And this is true of thyroid hormones. This is true of insulin for diabetics. This is true of every hormone. All the hormones in your body are not just these magical ingredients that your body whips up out of thin air. These are very particular substances that need vitamins and minerals and carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in order to properly produce them. So generally speaking, when you're low in a hormone, you've got to go backward. Instead of taking hormones, you need to start looking at vitamins and minerals as potential reasons as to why you're low in it in the first place. And when you come over here, we've got neurological symptoms. We mentioned depression earlier, but migraine headaches. If you're a migraine sufferer and you've been suffering from migraines, and it's interesting because a lot of people with migraine headaches, women I should say, also deal with PMS, and sometimes it's the PMS, the premenstrual issue, that actually triggers the migraine, and this is a very common kind of duality with magnesium deficiency. And then neuropathies, numbness and tingling and enhanced pain. This is very common peripherally in the hands and the feet. So if you've got neuropathy, think potential for magnesium. And then, as I mentioned earlier, constipation, IBS. So again, your GI tract is a muscle that contracts and relaxes. Magnesium plays a role in how well it can do that. And so low magnesium can actually contribute to that irritable bowel. So a lot of different problems that magnesium can create. Magnesium, I should say magnesium deficiency.